Treasurer, our friend in government, Seth Magazine.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming out on a cold and cloudy day. Thank you to Attorney General Noronha and his entire team. They are off to a terrific start, and it's no surprise. But the care and the attention that they've shown to victims' rights and victims' advocacy, even early on in his administration, is very laudable. To Commissioner Perry, Colonel Clements, Colonel Manny, and to District Attorney Weissman, and everybody else who is here today on behalf of law enforcement and our criminal justice system. Thank you all for the work that you do to support victims every day. I also want to recognize all of the awardees, both this year's awardees, and I see a number of past awardees here as well. Everything that we do together to support victims is a function of partnership. And the reason that we're all here is because none of us can do it alone. In our office, we have the responsibility of managing the state's Crime Victims Compensation Program. The Crime Victims Compensation Program, for those of you who don't know, is a fund to assist victims of violent crimes and their family members with expenses related to the crime. When we think about victims of crime, we often think about the physical trauma or the emotional trauma that they have to endure. We forget too often that there's also financial trauma in many cases, whether it's having to miss work and lose wages as a result of the crime, or expenses like transportation to court, or crime scene cleanup, or medical that's not covered by insurance. So this program exists to help victims of crime and their family members with up to $25,000 of compensation for those expenses. And I will tell you firsthand that many of the people that we have helped, we would not have known about, we would not have been able to connect with, were it not for a close partnership with law enforcement, with victims advocacy organizations, with the Attorney General's office, and others who are here today. We need help getting the word out so that people know that this resource exists. I'm proud to report that last year alone, more than 1,200 Rhode Islanders were assisted by this program, including 255 children. And if I could highlight just one thing real quick, we're especially proud of our ability to help victims of violent crimes with relocation expenses, which is especially relevant in cases of domestic abuse. Too often, there are people who are in unsafe or unhealthy relationships that they feel that they can't leave for financial reasons. And we will cover hotel room nights, we will cover the first 3 months of rent on an apartment. Over the last 3 years, we've helped more than 300 people relocate, victims of domestic abuse, relocate through this program, and I'm sure that we have saved some lives in the process. So I just want to thank everybody for your work and your partnership. We're all in this together. I want to single out and thank our team with the Crime Victims Compensation Program in our office, David Zuller, Carol Aguas-Vivas, Marian Solomon, and Shirley Roy, who are all here today. And thank all of you, whether it's something big or something small, anything that we can do to help people in their time of need is worthwhile and is important. And I thank everybody for coming here today to commemorate this important event. And for the awardees this year, thank you especially for your work, and we have citations for you as well. So thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Providence Police Chief Colonel Hugh Clements.
Thank you, General. Up top, I'd like to thank the Rhode Island Attorney General's office for hosting this event. I look forward to attending under the direction and guidance of Peter Noronha, Attorney General, going forward for at least the next 4 years. As well, I'd like to thank Family Services, all the social service agencies who are part of organizing and putting this event on. A very important and crucial event, critical event to what we do every single day. I see so many friends, so many survivors, so many victims of survivors out there that we deal with, that we've dealt with in the past. And for a very long time, the Providence Police Department has had a victim-centered approach. And it takes a true professional to get away from the mundane and the routine of dealing with the countless thousands of calls, thousands of crimes, thousands of victims that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in our countless calls. And it is that truly skilled and dedicated professional, and not only in the law enforcement community. The law enforcement community works very closely with our prosecutors, with our medical personnel, and probably most importantly with our social service partners in dedicating their commitment, their profession to the victims. Many times victims of crimes and their families, their lives are shattered, and we know that. Their lives are ruined, and we know that they cannot combat that uphill battle alone. They need critical resources, they need critical outreach from the true professionals in the form of police officers, prosecutors, medical personnel, and our social service partners. This has become ingrained in the approach of the Providence Police Department, I will tell you that. This trauma-informed approach, this perspective, and I'm proud to say that two of the awardees today, I congratulate all of the honorees today, but two of them come from the Providence Police Department, and they've taken that professionalism and that truly ingrained position of catering to the victim from their new role, from their old role in the Providence Police Department to their new role in DCYF. So congratulations to all the honorees, and especially two who left the Providence Police, Mike Jackvony and AJ Lee. Congratulations. So, and as well, I spoke about the countless of calls that we attend to every single day and thousands of calls that we deal with on a yearly basis, and this is what we do. And I want to thank the detectives of the Providence Police Department, the sergeant in charge of the Special Victims Unit, Terrence Green, I see him there, because we're committed to what we do. And that's why these officers are here. They're dealing truly in a professional way with the victims. The Providence Police will continue to deal with victims in a professional, compassionate, empathetic manner, and we will stand for justice, and we will stand for the revitalization of those victims going forward. So congratulations to the honorees, and our hearts and our resources will continue to go out to the victims and the survivors of victims going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Clements. Next, I want to call up Superintendent of the State Police, Colonel James Manning. Colonel.
I'd like to thank the Attorney General, Peter Nerona, for hosting today's event, and also for inviting the State Police to give some remarks. And congratulations to the honorees. We tend to make headlines when we make a big arrest or have a major court case, but the real stories are those behind the headlines, and the many, many more that never make the news. The real stories are those of the victims of every crime. Their stories are often tragic, even heartbreaking for them and their loved ones. Each of these individuals look up to those gathered here today, the state troopers, local police officers, state and federal prosecutors, and victim advocates. They expect us to help them, to stand up for them, and to protect them, because that's what we're sworn to do. They're often devastated by what has happened, whether they've had their wallets stolen, or their house was broken into, or the victim of a physical or sexual assault. Some of the stories are sad, others horrifying, especially when it involves young victims of sexual predators or senior citizens who have been swindled or abused. There are countless tragic, senseless deaths, like those caused by drunk drivers, drug overdoses, domestic violence, and mass shootings. Even with all our collective years in law enforcement, we can't begin to make sense of some of what happens in today's world. That's why we stand here today, to honor and remember the victims of all crimes and everyone else affected by them. We want you to know that we are here to help you, to stand up for you, and to protect you, and to bring justice. We We promise that we will continue to do our best to serve and protect, to fight crime and arrest criminals, to be there for every crime victim and his or her loved ones. And we promise we won't give up, because no one deserves to be the victim of a crime, no one should ever have to experience what many of you have suffered through. Once again, to the Attorney General, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you, Colonel. And next, I'd like to call up the Commissioner of Commissioner of Public Safety for the City of Providence, Stephen Parry.
Thank you, General. Police officers have to be reminded that there are victims out there that suffer the rest of their lives, and acknowledging that and doing what we can as law enforcement officers. Because once you're a victim for life. So there are so many people that work so hard to make sure that the victim's voice is not only heard but never forgotten. And reflecting back in times like this reminds the law enforcement officers that although we respond to so many thousands of calls, every crime has a victim. And those are the people that suffer for life. So congratulations for those who are being acknowledged. Our hearts, our minds continue to be with those who suffer for the rest of their lives because they've been victims of crime. We will never forget, and we'll continue to work hard. So there's somewhat of a normalcy when you're victimized or suffer from a crime, whether it's a loved one or family member. Thank you for hosting this, General, and we'll never forget victims of crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We had heard from a cross-section of law enforcement, but I want to acknowledge that there are 37 other police chiefs out there, some of whom are here today. I see Chief Oates from Woonsocket, and the Executive Director of the Police Chiefs Association is here as well, Sid Wardell. And those chiefs, like the chiefs and colonels behind me, are doing this work with all of you as well, and I want to acknowledge their contributions to this effort. All right, I now want to turn to the presentation of the citations to our honorees. Our first honoree was nominated by the Day One Advocates at the Office of Victim Services for his important work on behalf of victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Officer Michael S. Martinsen is a 5-year veteran of the Woonsocket Police Department. He is a certified drug recognition expert, and to my knowledge, there's only 2 in Woonsocket, I believe. So he's one of 2. We need more, frankly, but that's a story for another day. A traffic stop instructor, a standardized field sobriety instructor, a domestic violence sexual assault instructor, and the department's liaison for domestic violence and sexual assault. Officer Martinsen also serves as a field training officer and is highly involved with the field training program overall. He is known by his supervisor as one of the go-to guys and among his peers as an informal leader. Officer Martinsen, will you come up and accept your award, please? You know, when I was going through the transition to become Attorney General, you get a lot of correspondence, to be candid. And many of the letters I got talked about prosecutors in the office who had impacted victims in a particular way. And you know who you are, because I think I spoke to most of you about that. There were many of them. But there were none for whom I received more correspondence than Shannon Signore. Shannon is a Assistant Attorney General in my office. Angelica Spirito from the Shepherd Program at St. Mary's Home for Children states in her nomination, Shannon prosecutes some of the most difficult cases involving crimes against children. She goes on to say that Shannon is passionate and determined to seek justice, and that above all else, Shannon is focused on the child's needs, meeting with them and explaining the next steps in a lengthy criminal justice process, validating their concerns and ensuring that he or she is believed and supported. She closes her nomination by saying that Shannon is a true professional, exemplifying honesty, compassion, and is an unwavering advocate for children and families impacted by a crime. And I can tell you that all of that is true. I'll also share with you that in our renovated office, or at least partially renovated, Sharon took the initiative to create a small place for children to come into the office and be comfortable while they or their parents are in the office. And so that's the kind of initiative that Shannon shows every single day, and it's why she's being honored here today. So Shannon. Nominated by the St. Mary's Home for Children's STAR program are those former Providence police officers, Michael Jackvony and Arthur A.J. Lee, now with DCYF, who spend their days attempting to locate and recover children who are missing from DCYF care. Their nomination states that it is clear in every interaction they have with youth that they only want the best for each child and are truly invested in their success and safety. They go above and beyond their job description to maintain relationships with youth once recovered. This might mean visiting their group home with snacks, reaching out when they know a child might be struggling, or checking in with the child's providers to see what they can do to help. They're always willing to come in early or leave late if it means a child can be recovered safely. They do this all with upbeat and positive attitudes. Gentlemen, will you come forward, please? Our final honoree was nominated by the Victims of Crime Act Administrator's Office and seconded by the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence. Myra Latimer founded the Stephen K. Latimer Memorial Foundation in honor of her son Stephen, who lost his life on October 2nd, 2011 due to a random act of violence. Each year, the foundation holds the SKL Memorial 5K, Families Against Violence Run Walk, to raise funds to provide educational scholarships to children in Rhode Island who have lost a parent, guardian, or loved one to an act of violence. The funds raised also enable the foundation to assist families in need during the holidays and support programs that are geared towards keeping youth off the street. Myra also serves on the board for the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence. Myra, would you come forward, please? I want to thank all of our honorees for your tireless work on behalf of victims of crime and your inspiration to all of us. In closing, I'd like to ask everyone to gather around as we place a wreath in honor of all of those who have been victims of crime, and I will be joined by Myra Latimer.